I'm in Dortmund for the World Teams Championships, which starts tomorrow. We had a chance to practice in one of the main competition halls today, and the conditions felt really good. The setup looks amazing and it'll be a lot of fun to play the event. In my last diary, I was talking about the process of trying to qualify for the Olympics. I felt such immense, overwhelming pressure to qualify for London. I just invested so much into the whole quest, both financially, emotionally and time-wise. The adventure will have cost us somewhere between $80,000 to $100,000 in expenses, training, tournaments, accommodation, lost income by the time London is over. We'd booked everything for my girlfriend Danielle, so flights, accommodation, tickets to the table tennis, well over a year before the Olympics was going to start, and 8 months before we even knew if I was going to be competing in London. It's the only affordable way to do it, and it was a risk that we just had to take. So I'd invested all this time, all this money, 18 months of my life just uprooted for the chance to play in London, and I felt that the only acceptable outcome was to qualify for the Olympic Games. I'd been feeling sick in my stomach at least once every day for 6 months before the Olympic qualifying was due to start, so I had so much built up tension and anxiety inside me. My last few weeks before the qualifying were like a nightmare being played out in slow motion. My form nosedived and I was bundled out of the 2 last Pro Tours before the qualification, both in the group stage. On top of that, I just had a woeful weekend of Austrian League. That was just a couple of days before I went back to Australia for the qualifying. I'd lost just 3 matches in the first 11 matches of the season, and in 1 weekend of play I lost 4 matches. I just hit rock bottom. My play was poor, but most importantly, my head was just a complete mess. I felt the anxiety growing stronger and stronger by the second, and after the disastrous weekend of league I had right before going home, I felt, is this worth it? Is it worth going through this? And I considered, throwing in the towel. I arrived back home in Australia about a week before the Olympic trials started, the Australian leg of the qualifying, and I was lucky enough to be able to call on one of Australia's best sports psychologists who's in the past helped athletes, some of Australia's top athletes like Ian Thorpe and Kathy Freeman. She was just fantastic, and right from the first time we spoke I felt much better about what was going on. She gave me some exercises to control the anxiety I was feeling, and some more exercises to really try and change the outlook I had on life and get things into a much more positive frame. And together those things just led me in a completely new direction, far better than the downward spiral I was in, and I turned up in Sydney feeling ready to play, and even though I wasn't in good form, I felt like I had the tools to get myself out of the ditch. After winning the initial Australian qualifying tournament, which gave me a spot at the Oceania event and gave me a very high percentage of making the Olympic team, I felt just this enormous weight lift off my shoulders, and I began feeling happy again. So although qualifying for the Olympics seemed like a straightforward process for me, there were few people at the time who knew what I was feeling, what I was going through, and how difficult that part of the journey had been for me. A couple of weeks later in Sydney, I played the Oceania event. I was feeling pretty good by that stage. I was playing well, I was feeling up for it and ready to perform, and got through my matches quite easily to qualify for the Australian team. The World Championships teams event starts tomorrow. We've got Egypt first up, which is a tough starting match. They've got 3 players in the top 150 in the world, and it's going to be difficult to make a dent on